Earth Abides by George R. Stewart in this SF Masterworks edition. This one is about a guy living in a post-apocalyptic world attempting to rebuild civilization. I haven't read any of George R. Stewart's work before, and I know that this has either already been made or is going to be made into a TV series. I've not heard all that much about it, which I don't think is a very good sign, and I'm not particularly interested in watching it, but I do want to read Earth Abides. I should say that pretty much all of the books on this list are present in science fiction, the 100 best novels by David Pringle, which is a challenge I'm doing on the channel to read through all 100 of these. And these are all new books, and ordinarily I would be looking at picking up vintage copies of these, but I did get some vouchers for Christmas, so I picked up a few new copies. We've then got Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Again, SF Masterworks. I've read one other Philip K. Dick book, which is The Maze of Death, which I thought was okay. I didn't love it, but that's definitely not one of his most acclaimed works. But Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is. This was adapted into the film Blade Runner, which I do really like, but I hear that the book is quite different. Actually, I like both Blade Runner films. We've then got a couple of books by Ursula K. Le Guin. I've read a few of her books in the past and really liked them, but they weren't her most acclaimed works, but these two I think are, from what I've seen. So we've got The Dispossessed, which is about two worlds which have very different political ideologies. I think this one is essentially a commentary on socialism versus capitalism. And then we've got The Left Hand of Darkness, which is set on an icy planet inhabited by an androgynous people. So probably a commentary on gender there, and it sounds like it's mostly a journey across an icy landscape, which sounds really good to me. This next one sounds interesting. Bernard Wolfe's Limbo, with quite a peculiar cover there. And this is set in a future world where men have opted to curb their aggressive nature by undergoing voluntary amputation of their limbs. Sounds incredibly strange and unique, and also looks fairly lengthy. And then we've got Kurt Vonnegut, The Sirens of Titan, and this one seems to be about a guy who encounters some kind of anomaly in space which converts his physical being into some kind of energy existence. I've not read any of Kurt Vonnegut's books before, but there are a couple that I picked up in this set of books. Next up, we've got John Sladek's The Complete Roderick. Again, I've not read any of his work before. This one is very long, and I think that's because it is essentially two books in one. And I had a flick through this one, and it seems like it gets a bit experimental in terms of its form, because I was seeing various diagrams and sketches included throughout. Let's see if I can find one here. Yeah, so we've got kind of charts and diagrams and sketches and whatnot throughout the book, and it's essentially about a robot undergoing development over the course of several generations. Another book by Kurt Vonnegut in Slaughterhouse 5, which is about a time traveller in Dresden when it was being bombed during the Second World War. I think that's what it's about anyway. Next up, we've got a book that I am incredibly ashamed to admit that I have never read, which is 1984 by George Orwell. I got this Penguin Modern Classics with a Francis Bacon painting on the cover. I don't think I need to tell you what 1984 is about. This is pretty much the dystopian novel, so I should probably read that sooner rather than later. Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut, and this one is about some kind of substance called Ice-9, which has the ability to completely freeze the entire planet. And lastly, in this set of new books that I bought is Octavia Butler's Wild Seed. Again, an author I've not read before, and reading the blurb here, it sounds to me like this is more fantasy than science fiction, because it's about two immortal beings meeting in an African forest, but it mentions that one of them is an ancient spirit. So I am intrigued to see whether this is science fiction or not, because it does appear in that list by David Pringle that I mentioned earlier. So that is everything that I bought with my vouchers that I got for Christmas. I'm going to be reading and reviewing these books over the next year or two, so feel free to stick around for those. Have you read any of them? If you have, what do you think of them? Are they worth my time? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one.